Hello everyone, this is Homer White with a discussion of an example data analysis report from Chapter 2 of our course. To get hold of this report, you need to go to the Math 111 Common Source folder. So we'll press ellipses, enter the name of the common folder. Looking inside the common folder, you want to find your instructor. We'll find it among Dr. White's stuff. It's among the Fall 2014 Data Analysis Reports. And we'd like to look at the example that covers Chapter 2. The example really contains two files. First of all is the Chapter 2 example R Markdown, which we'll open up now. There's also the Chapter 2 example as a Word document that has the .docx at the end. We'll open it up, and for most of you, your browser should offer to download the file for you or to open it with Microsoft Word if you happen to be working on Windows. I'll just open it as a Word document. Enable editing to make it a bit larger. And let's take a look at this data analysis document in Word form. Any data analysis report, no matter how small, should have a good descriptive title. This one does. It should have your name, and it should have the date. Also, every data analysis report will have 4 sections: an introduction, the methods, results, and a section on discussion and your general conclusions. Let's go through each of these sections in a little bit of detail. First, though, I would ask you to pause the video, retrieve this document in Word form, and read it over for yourself. Come back when you've read it over once. Hello again. I assume now that you've read the document. We'll begin with the introduction. In our assignments, quite often the introduction will be written for you, and you'll fill in on the other parts. The introduction is the part of the report where you orient the reader to the data that was collected that you plan to analyze, talk a little bit about how it was collected, the purposes for it which was collected, who collected it, and also you want to make very sure that the reader knows what the research question is that you're bringing to that data. In this case, the research question concerning the data frame napkins was, who uses more napkins on average, a Georgetown College female or a Georgetown College male? In the next section, methods, you figure out what kinds of graphical or numerical methods are appropriate to answering your research question on the basis of the data that has been collected. At this point, variable analysis is of utmost importance. Remember that variable analysis is the process of finding out what variables in the data frame are involved in your research question, and then deciding what type of variable each one is. In the case of the napkins data frame, if you look at it carefully using your usual tools of data, view, and help, then you'll find out that the research question, who uses more napkins, a guy or a gal, involves 2 variables from that data frame. One variable is the variable sex, which is a factor variable. It has 2 values, male and female. These are not numbers, and so that variable is a factor variable. It also involves the variable napkins, the number of napkins that each student used at lunch. That's a numerical variable. Also, it's a good point at this stage to say which of the variables you'll think of as explanatory and which ones as the response, if that kind of categorization is relevant to your study. Here, it seems natural to think of sex as the explanatory variable because we think of your sex as in part causing how many napkins you're going to use, perhaps through some form of cultural conditioning that people impose upon you once they know your sex at birth. Having done the variable analysis, we apply it to figure out what kinds of graphical and numerical techniques we should use to explore our research question. Since napkins is a numerical variable, we know that histograms, box plots, and density plots are all good ways to look at the number of napkins used. But since we're looking at it in relationship to the factor variable sex, we know we're going to want to break down the napkin use into the two groups, napkins used by the males and the number of napkins used by the females. So although we'll make a histogram, box plot, or density plot, we'll make sure that we'll make them in pairs, one for the males and one for the females. You want to make a choice. You don't have to make all possible types of plots, and in this study, the author apparently chose to make histograms, a pair of histograms, one for males and one for females, and then to compare them. For numerical methods, the author decided to compare the mean for the two groups, males and females, and the median napkin use for the two groups as well, because means and medians are good measures of center, and the research question was interested in who uses more napkins on average, guys or gals. In the next section on results, we'll often subdivide the section into our graphical results and our numerical results. For the graphical results, we know that we need to make the histograms. It's very good practice to have a short sentence that alerts the reader to what's going to come next. You don't want to just hit the reader over the head with a graph. You want to introduce the histogram to the reader. After you've done the introduction, we see the code that produces the histogram, and then the histogram itself. Afterwards is some discussion about features of the code that made the histogram look as nice and informative as it did. And then, and this is what's really important, you've got to discuss what you see in the histogram that helps you answer your research question. And so here, when you read through this paragraph, you'll realize that people are noticing that the center for males is somewhere around 4, whereas the center for females is somewhere around 2. Males appear to be using more napkins. The next subsection after graphical results is numerical results. Favestats were used to obtain them. And although there's quite a bit of output in favestats, including such things as the minimums and the quartiles, or the standard deviations, or the number of missing observations, which was none in this case, what you really want to focus on are the measures of center, the mean and the median. So the discussion that follows emphasizes the difference that we see between the means for the two groups and the medians for the two groups. Again, it looks like guys are using more napkins than gals on average. Finally, a general conclusion. This is also a good place to discuss other items or open questions that remain in your mind. So even though we're pretty sure that we see that in this sample, guys are using more napkins on average than gals, we still are wondering whether the pattern that we see in the sample is good evidence that a like pattern holds for the whole population at Georgetown College. Or could the difference that we see in the sample between the guys and the gals be just due to chance variation in the random sampling process itself? So that idea is brought out, talked about a little bit. This is just a small example of a very small scale data analysis report. It only involves a simple, single research question, and at this point early on in the course we have only a few descriptive tools available to answer it. Later data analysis reports will become progressively more ambitious. Thank you for listening.